right, everybody, welcome back to the 311 Odyssey podcast. Dude, our next guest is so amazing. You probably have never heard of him. If you have, you're deep, deep, deep in the mix. He's great friends with the band. He was in ETSD 2. He has footage that ended up in ETSD 3. He designed an album for 311. He's the Shaquille O'Neal connection. He got to go to Nick's Island. We're going to hear about that later. And probably one thing that I definitely want to talk about today is the trip that this guy took with Nick and Essay to Jamaica for
Yeah.
inspiration for Soundsystem. Y'all, welcome Bryan Ling.
Hey,
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
welcome to the show,
What's
bud.
up? Thanks for having
Dude,
me.
Of
dude,
course.
thank you so much for doing this. Man, like you are definitely embedded in the friend family culture of 311, and I know there's going to be a lot of great stories. I can't wait to get to them. But we always got to ask first, when was the first time you heard 311?
The first time I heard 311, I was a sophomore in high school. I remember this as if it was literally yesterday. This is 95. Um, I had a friend. His name was I mean he's still around somewhere. We're not friends. We lost track. But his name was Jason Williams. He had a burgundy um, Toyota Corolla. And he picked me up. We were going to go to this place called the Forest, which we kids would go to, and we'd maybe smoke a joint, and we would swing on these fire hoses that were tied to trees, like over like a little canyon. And I got in the car. He looked at me and he was like, "Check this shit out." And he had a cassette. He had a cassette tape, and it was music. And he put it in, and I'm pretty sure we went to the forest, but we listened to the whole thing in the car, front to back. I was like just instantly blown away. And that started my musical journey with 311. But it's still as clear as day over uh, 20 years later. Just like
And so
really special moment.
the second part of that
Right.
question would be then when was the first show that you got to experience 311?
I went. I think I know that the first show was at Universal Amphitheater, which is no longer there anymore, up where City Walk is in LA. I didn't get to see like a sweaty club show early days. 311. By this time, Transistor had already come out. Or no, sorry, by the time I had seen them, Transistor had come out. And it was a big show. I mean, I remember going and seeing it. It was a big 311 show. I think probably for them at that time. Wonder what year that was. I'm guessing. I think I was still in high school. I'm thinking it was like maybe 96,
Or
maybe
97?
96.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
One is
whenever they played the Universal Amphitheater.
nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Well, you said Transistor was out. I think Transistor came out in
97.
97, so it would be
Hmm.
after that. Yeah.
97 or a little bit after that, yep. But the right time
yeah,
frame. Right time frame.
yeah.
In
Right.
ish.
Was it a through that headlining show or was it like a K Rock?
No, I think I'm pretty sure it was a 311 headline show. That's the
Okay.
thing that I know that I had seen them kind of after at the same venue for a K Rock acoustic Christmas or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm almost positive it was a long time ago. But I'm almost positive that I know that the first time I saw them live was at the Universal Amphitheater. I'm almost positive it
Gotcha.
was a headline show.
Gotcha.
You could probably look it up and see when that was, because they probably didn't play that more than once.
Sure. In
Yeah.
that year. Yeah.
I was so pumped.
Cool.
I'll track it down later.
Yeah, Jenny will hunt out. So, you became great friends with the band.
Yeah,
And tell me about the first time you met them.
yeah. So right out of high school, instead of going to college, I started promoting. I really wanted to be in the music business, and so I just kind of threw myself out there, and I was promoting parties and promoting shows, and I was working for a record label, and I was hustling. I was like 18, 19 years old, and I had booked the Urge at the Key Club in West Hollywood, and with the hope that Nick would come through and sing a song that they had that was like the hit.
Jump right in.
Jump right in. Yeah.
Jump Right In that featured Nick. And we booked the show. It wasn't like, you need to have Nick be there or anything like that. I was just hoping that was going to be the kid. I was a fan of the Urge through following. At this point, back then it was so much more fun to kind of like do your own research and dig, and it wasn't like the internet. We weren't really like searching chat rooms to find out what was going on. You really had to kind of figure it out in other ways, reading papers and whatever else, and then listening to what the band was saying. So anyways, I was telling you this the other day, B, that I remember standing by the bar, and I remember watching like first, I think it was Chad, and then it was SA, and I noticed SA like right away. And I was like, oh man, for sure Nick's coming then if those dudes just walked in. And then I remember even Brian Smith, and you must have been there, B, like there's just like this group that walked in, and then Nick was there, and I went up and introduced myself because I kind of was like putting together the show. And and I was sitting there. I remember that night, I remember being out in the crowd and kind of like right near SA and kind of dancing with him while the show was going on. I was like, man, these guys are so cool. And a few nights later, maybe a week later, it was 4th of July. And I got invited to go to the owner of the Key Club's house that was out on Santa Monica on the beach. And all the 311 dudes showed up at the party. And so then I was like, oh man, I'm like right out of high school. It was my favorite band. Two times in like, it must have been a week or really, really shortly after, just because when I went up to them, they were all like, oh, Bryan. They all remembered me from like the show. And so, honestly, from that day forward, we were just friends. I had a piece of paper for a long time. I'm sure it's in a memory box somewhere that had the names of Chad and Doug. Both had given me their phone numbers.
Nice.
And then, I was, like I said, I was throwing parties. I was promoting shows. So I was calling them up all the time. Do you guys want to go to this? Do you want to go to that? And I was saying to B as well that like I think that I caught like a really lucky stride where there was always like one of them that was single at a time, and when that person was single, they were like, yeah, let's go out. And so like back in those days, just I think maybe my enthusiasm and knowledge of 311 mixed with my ability to kind of like maneuver in and out of Hollywood was like a good combo to hang with. And, I wasn't just a super fan. I also knew where the party was. And so, and I was getting my feet wet in the music business and really like bright-eyed and interested in kind of how it all worked. And working at a record label was like one perspective, but then being able to hang with the artists was another one. And that's what 311 allowed me to do, as this like young kid who would just like show up at the studio. Didn't really know the etiquette of like what was okay and what wasn't back then, but never was very careful to kind of like never overstep my bounds. I think I kind of navigated that pretty good as well in the beginning. So and then we just turned into deep friends. You know, they're amazing guys. I connected with each one of them separately. Peanut was the last that I really got to know well, but then when we did connect, it was like, you know, again, another dimension, another personality that I was really interested in, and yeah, fortunately over the years have been able to remain close with them.
I remember those days really well. And you were so impressive at that age because you were, how old were you when you started promoting and you met him?
Like 19.
Oh, wow.
So we were used to seeing older promoters in LA, like people that were established and around for a long time. And all of a sudden, here comes this dude, hungry, and I was like, "Who is this guy? He knows every person in every club." And we would come to a point where, like, I would go to Nick's house, or we would meet at Nick's house, and then the first phone call was to you, like, let's call Brian and find out where the party is at tonight, because it was always depending on what day of the week it was. The hot club was somewhere else, right?
Right.
And you had connections at all of them, or were promoting at them. And I'm just like, this guy already is deep embedded in Hollywood and music at the age of 19. And I'm just like, dude, what a hustler, man. So impressive. And
Well, I just got to say to that like it would part of it was like, you know, when you meet your heroes and they're cool and you get to and you're not like turned off by it or disenfranchised by like, oh man, but you get a glimpse behind the curtain and you're like, oh, these are exactly who I hoped that they would be. It was kind of a motivating factor for me. So if when you guys were calling me, even if I was taking a night off that night, I wasn't going to take a night off to like go and hang with my heroes. And so, you know, I just kept me on my toes, and it kind of like further, you know, I was talking to someone the other day about like how your perspective shifts over the years, and there was a time when like you could I couldn't think of like not going out, you know,
right.
and these dudes were, and all of you were a part of like uh, just feeding that enthusiasm.
All right. So go back to 4th of July. We're at the beach in this amazing house. There's a ton of industry people there. And we all decide to go to a club.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so excited at this point. Like, you know, the Key Club was cool, but I thought that that was going to be like a, you know, flash in the pan. I got to meet those dudes. But now I'm hanging with them, and I'm just like having a blast. And I don't know how it. I don't know who suggested it, but all of a sudden we were on our way to the Opium Den, which was this cool place back in the day, and you know, I've never been like a big drinker. Successfully navigated through Hollywood and out in nightlife without developing any problems. But that night in particular, I must have been so drunk that I didn't even make it out of the car at Opium Den. I remember getting there and then falling asleep, I think in my sister's car, someone's car who had gone there. And I remember them going inside and then them coming out. And I remember Doug's laugh in particular, like when he opened the door and saw me like sleeping in the car. Like there's this dude that we just met that like was so excited about going out and then couldn't even make it out of the car when we got there.
Your first night getting to hang with 311 at a club in Hollywood, and you're passed out in the car. Oh
I was
no.
passed out. I know. But I did get the numbers at the party before I passed out, and so and I remember thinking before I was like calling him, I was like, man, are they gonna think I'm lame because I didn't, you know? But no, and the funny thing about that, which I think is a good dovetail into the Jamaica story, is
Yeah.
that I don't think any of them knew my age. I mean, I'm certain they didn't know my age because when Essay and Nick asked me if I wanted to go to Jamaica. I don't know how they even asked me. Like I must have I must have heard that they were going and somehow like convinced them that I should go with them. I don't know. All of a sudden, I remember being at the LAX airport going, man, this is just wild. I'm going to Jamaica right now with these two guys. Like I couldn't have been happier. And I remember getting there, and we have this first night. We meet up with Native Wayne, we're staying at his condo. He gets us set up, and we're out in the ocean, just the three of us, and we all have red stripes, and we're just kind of like up to our necks. And I'm just like couldn't have been more stoked. And the next day, I wake up and I walk out to the breakfast table, and Nick's like, "You have something you want to tell us?" And I was like, I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he has my driver's license. He's
Oh,
like,
no.
he's like, you're 20 years old? And I'm like, yeah. And by this time we had been hanging for like a year or so or whatever, just going out to every club that was, 21 and over. Uh, they were all, I think that they were all probably like 7 or 8 or not. I don't even, how old is Nick these days?
52,
52,
3.
53. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all like 7, 8 years older than me. And so I was like, oh yeah, I have a fake ID. So they were just like, they couldn't. I remember at breakfast, it was a little bit awkward. He was kind of laughing. SA was laughing. They're also like, we're hanging with this like little kid. And I was like, I think I said something to the effect of like, I'm the same guy that's been hanging out for the last year, getting you into all the parties, and that was they just thought it was a funny thing after that. But yeah, that was the reveal. And then I was like, why were you guys going through my wallet? First of all,
Right.
Nick was like, I had a suspicion that you were younger than you you said you were. I was like, I never said anything. You never asked.
Everybody
Yeah.
just assumed you were supposed to be there. Everybody saw your face,
I
just
mean,
walk in.
That's
you
right.
were such a veteran in Hollywood that, I mean, how could you be that young, you know?
That's right. That's right. I never had it sorted out. Or I don't think I ever had to pull out an ID by the time that I needed one.
I don't know
So
how that was possible because you got a young face for a 40-something now. And if I'd have tried to take this face in at 19 and 20 in Hollywood, they'd have been like, dude, you're 12. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So,
true.
yeah,
I know.
that's something else, man.
But tell us
Yeah.
any other good juicy stories about Jamaica. I mean, Nick attributes Jamaica inspiration for the song "Come Original," and he has this
Yeah.
story where he got the name of that song. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was with them we were on the beach, and this guy came up and I mean we were so just all three of us taking in the culture. I remember like walking down the street, and we looked down like this alleyway, and there were these gigantic sound systems set up. And I think that this is maybe inspiration for Soundsystem, or calling the album Soundsystem. It's just like these huge speakers, like tons of them. And we just like just the three of us walked down. We were the only white people in this like little zone, and full on like dance battle broke out between these people. It was just like these groups of people coming up and doing like a dance, and then
Wow.
like getting out of there, and another group would come up. And we were just like, this is wild. And the music was so fresh. We went to the studio that was up on the cliff, on these cliffs, that was it belonged to UB40 at the time, and this guy Kid Vicious was recording in there, which was really wild to know that was going down. And we met this guy Jigo on the beach. I think that's how you say his name. And we were rolling around with camcorders, recording everything, and it was at night, and this dude started singing "Come Original," and or parts of it, and it was catchy, and it was cool, and he was like selling cigarettes. You know, I remember him. He had like one of these things like on his head that had like a bunch of stuff that he was like selling. And I'll say another thing that I remember from that trip. There's two things. One, Nick was like the shrewdest negotiator. Like it was amazing to watch. Like it was a game, and he
Oh,
knew that
yeah.
that was the way that it was. I always thought it was like funny, but like it's like, yeah, you have to like negotiate with everyone, you know, because we were buying souvenirs and buying everything, you know, you're just buying everything there, and he loved it. He loved negotiating. Like it was like a fun thing for him, and I remember very clearly also, we were on scooters. We rented these three scooters, and we were cruising through. You know, again, I don't think I'd ever even been on a scooter before, and I remember was going about 45 miles an hour, and we were coming up, and there was a gigantic hole in the road, and I hit the brakes. I hit both of the brakes, which you never should. If you're watching this or listening to it, never hit both brakes on a scooter at the same time. I was going so fast that I flipped over the handlebars, and I was rolling. I rolled so fast that I rolled into a stand-up position after like 6 rolls. I was just standing in the
Whoa.
middle of the street. I had no shirt on.
Oh my
My
God.
whole back was just like destroyed. My hands. It was like the second day we were there. So every time I went in the ocean after that, it was just like an
Oh,
acid bath.
yeah.
Um, but Nick and SA both were behind me and got to see the whole thing. So I'm thankful that like at least someone got to witness like how crazy it was. They pulled up next to me. They're like, "What? Are you okay?" I was, you know, wasn't
Yeah.
gonna act like I was hurt to my hero. So I was just like, "Yeah, I'm all good. Like we need to take you to a doctor." And I remember saying, "No." I go, "You think I'm gonna go to a doctor here? Like I'm like I'm good. I'm cool. I think I'll just I'll go in the ocean." In the ocean, it was like the worst. Anyway, I remember that story for sure.
My gosh. That was Sound System for that album, right?
That was before Sound System, yeah.
Yeah. And you got a plaque for Sound System, right?
I thought that I did. I can't.
Oh, I didn't see it anywhere.
I'm actually positive that I did get a plaque for Sound System, but I don't have it here. But I have these other plaques that I have.
We'll go over those in a second. Let's talk about 311 Day 2002. So you got to go. So as I'm cutting ETSD3, I get a bunch of tapes or just digitized tapes, and they're labeled Brian camera, Orion camera, Adam camera, Peter camera,
Okay.
and the whole concert is filmed. I could cut a live version of that whole concert. So tell me about how that came about. You guys filming the whole thing and that experience.
I mean, that must have been, let's see, 2002. That must have been my way of convincing them to let me come to 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 start, you know, to go and have it be paid for or something. I by this time I had convinced them to take me out on tour a few times. And I was saying this to B the other day. You know, I'm a music manager now in my real life profession. Been doing it since 2009, and I think back about the time when I was first hanging with these guys, and we were kicking it like we were just talking about in Hollywood, and then I was at the studio, and then all of a sudden they're going on tour, and I'm like, wait, you guys are gonna leave for like 2 months, 3 months? And I was like, how about can I come? And and thinking about it now, like the fact that they allowed me to come out for like a week or two at a time is just amazing. Because I just, when you're younger, you don't have any kind of reference, so you're just like, of course they'll let me out on tour. But I was saying the other day that if like one of the bands that I manage was like, we're gonna bring some random dude out on tour who serves no purpose at all, he's just gonna come and hang out, like I would probably have to put my foot down or ask them like, really, are you sure about this? But they allowed me to come, and so I think quickly I started to just like film, just to be on there. I was like, all right, well I should do something. So I just had a camcorder and I would just cruise around and I'd be filming. And I think that the 2002 311 day, that was the first 311 day that I went to. I don't know how many 311 days were there before that.
It was
One.
an unofficial one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing something about how they got like the key to the city or something. I don't know if that was in the first one. Did they
It
get
happened
yeah.
on all 311 days.
Yeah.
So the mayor declares that specific day as 311 day.
We'd like to thank the mayor of New Orleans hooking us up 311 Day once again, 2002, making an official city proclamation.
For sure.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that, and so I remember going to New Orleans. It was the first time I had ever been to New Orleans. Yeah, I must have I probably Adam or Peter asked me. They're probably like, thinking about it from their perspective, they were probably like, we got to start giving this guy something to do because he's probably going to convince the band to like let him come along anyways. So like that's probably how I filmed
Here's the
anything.
camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting because ETSD 1 comes out. Brian Smith's, they hand that off to him. Brian Smith knocks out ETSD 2 in a short amount of time. And then at that point, they're like, all right, ETSD 3, and they're focused on it. They're like, let's do it. Because there's all that footage you guys have. And then they have even Nick on stage, you guys filming him going during the show, ETSD 3, y'all. And this is in 2002. And all of a sudden, it's just like it goes dark. And then part 3 doesn't come out for literally like 20 years after the second one. So it's funny like how early they were filming for that and how much footage I had to go through to put it together. But that's great.
I know
But yeah,
you still have my tape. I mean, let's just have it out right now. You have the tapes. Someone has all of my tapes because I remember when they said that we're gonna be doing this, B's gonna be putting it together. I had a cardboard box of all of my little cassette tapes from when I was going out with 311, and I handed those over, and they never made it back to me.
Jenny has them.
And
Jenny has them under her desk. No?
someone had
No.
I would love to find these tapes. I would love to experience them again. Just there's so much, just young me out on tour for the first time. There's got to be some great footage in there. Got to get to the bottom of who has those.
Yeah, I wished I had them, homie. I wished. Let's go over all the stuff you have to show us. Your plaques. What do we got here?
Yeah. Well, in keeping with trying to figure out what I could do, my best plaque, I guess, is I designed the album cover for the first greatest hits that came out.
Nice.
Obviously, I just
It's all the logos.
just took all
album
just took
covers
all
and
the
logo.
yeah just took all the other records and put them into the logo, and that ended up making the cover. So I got that. Speaking of enlarged to show detail 2, got one for that.
Woo-wee.
Beautiful.
That is
Look at that.
beautiful.
Yeah, and then I did put together for 2004. Did put together a crew of people who made some of my closest friends made this DVD of the 311 Day 2004.
Nice. Yeah, that's
I
nice.
guess that's sold a bunch of copies, and I still have the set list from that show, 69 songs.
And it looks like it's signed.
Yeah,
Very thoroughly.
signed.
Amazing.
Peanut, we dropped a bomb on that. It's funny because a lot of the back and forth between I was a big football fan. I am still a big Notre Dame football fan. They're obviously big Husker fans. There's a lot of like, this one says Blinkster, Husker power, baby, don't deny it. It's just really funny that like that came to the top of Doug's mind after the show. And then this was a special one. I remember taking Adam Sandler to a 311 concert out in Irvine. We drove out there and watched him play. He was blown away by it, and then he hired Nick to executive produce the soundtrack for 50 First Dates.
Awesome.
And yeah, I got a copy. I got a gold record for that as well, which is pretty cool. Those are
Wait, hold on. Oh, go ahead, show that.
Those are the plaques that I got.
But so what do you mean you drove Adam Sandler to a 311 show?
I had become friends with him through another friend. I remember me and the other friend were going to go to the 311 show, and we were at his office, and he walked in because my friend worked with him. So he walked into the office and he was like, "What are you guys doing?" And we were like, "We're going to go see 311." And he was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, "You should come." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're amazing lot." You know, I was like super hype. 311 guys, especially when I was that age, like just describing the show to he must have just been it must have been a good sell, because the next thing I know, we got in the car and we were just driving down, and I remember calling one of those guys when I was driving. I was like, "I need another pass," and I was like excited, and we pulled up and introduced him to the band, and he watched them rock, and then he was just about to film 50 First Dates, and next thing I know, he called me and he was like, "Do you think that," he goes, "I have an idea for the soundtrack, and we're going to just do a bunch of covers, but we're going to make them modern. And I was like, "Nick can do it." I was like, he can produce we have a studio, I was just like, again, so I think like I got a lot of stuff done. You get so much done when you don't know how it works, right? Because you don't, you're not careful about like ruffling feathers or whatever. You're just kind of like gung-ho about everything. And so that energy probably helped get to a conversation between Nick, Adam, and Guy Osiri, who's very prominent music manager and Madonna and all these people, and ran Maverick Records, who was doing the soundtrack. And I remember after Guy and Nick talked, that's when Nick called me. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to produce the soundtrack." So
Awesome.
That's how it happened.
Well, cool. Speaking of celebrity connections in 311, that's a perfect segue into your somehow being the Shaq connection with 311 as well,
Yeah.
right? Why don't you tell us something
Yeah,
about the Shaquille O'Neal involvement?
Crazy. So my first record industry job was working for this label called Trauma Records, and Trauma had Bush and No Doubt,
Mm-hmm.
and then they were also putting out Shaquille O'Neal rap records, and I started at that record label as like a runner. My job, I don't even know if this job even exists anymore. It probably doesn't, but I would just pick stuff up, drop it off, grab it, take it somewhere. And then I kind of hustled my way into becoming like one of the president's assistants. And then my first kind of like real responsible job was he made me A&R of Shaq's record. And he so every day I was at the studio with Shaq. We were making a record. Long story short, he wanted to make this really credible street record, so we had every cool rapper at the time come and get on it. And when it was all said and done, I remember we played this album for like all of Shaq's handlers, like the people who were responsible for his endorsements. And we were all sitting in this room, and I remember Shaq basically saying, like, this record can't come out. We got to change a bunch of stuff. And all the people who were on it, the caveat of them being on it was that they wouldn't be censored in any way. They could say whatever they wanted. And so at the time, it just didn't fly. So this record that I talk about, which I was the A&R of, it actually never came out. I think that we made it for like $1 million, and then I think Shaq paid like $1.5 million to have it never be released, which is so weird. But during the time in making the record, I'd become friends with him, and I actually was the one who got Brian Smith to shoot Shaq back in the day for Shaq's album cover. And at the time, Brian was kind of like just starting as a photographer. Whoa.
This again.
Was that Nick?
What's up?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
The Blinkster.
Looks that way.
I'm just telling the how Shaq got involved. How we put that together. But yeah, I was saying that I was the A&R of his record. It was like my first kind of big boy job in in the music industry, and I'd become friends with him, and he was going to do this song. He wanted to do like a rock song. And I don't know how. I mean, I must have been playing him 311, that must have been like certainly like the conduit of them inviting some of you guys. I don't know if everyone came down to the studio the first time, but I know a few people, because it was also Fieldy from Korn, I think, was a part of it. And
there was guys from Boys to Men there.
What?
Oh, okay, yeah, because at the time, Boys to Men was doing was like singing the hook of like one of the records that was on Shaq's album that never ended up coming out. But we got everyone in the studio, and they made this song Psycho, and I know that everyone was kind of freaking out over it at the label. We all thought it was going to be like a thing that, like the owner, one of the owners of the label, is really excitable, and he's just would get really pumped on kind of everything, and he just thought that this would be a big moment for Shaq, to like cross over into like the alternative world. And I remember, I don't know if we must have done the video before K-Rock. The video probably happened before K-Rock, right, Nick?
Yes. And so there was like, I can think of 3 different secrets that we weren't supposed to tell anybody about the whole thing, but I think the statute of limitations has passed. First of all, he was like, nobody can know that I am playing pickup basketball with a band while we're in the middle of the NBA finals. Like, it just happened to be, it was like during the playoffs. And so because if he would have like twisted an ankle or anything playing basketball with a rock band, he would have gotten so much trouble. And then so we're shooting down there at the dome right next to the Queen Mary, the You Wouldn't Believe video. And we tried to send him, we talked about sending a helicopter, but instead he put a siren on his Superman SUV. Okay. I'll get to my secrets later.
Let me tell this part. Let me just tell that part, because all day, I remember like you guys had it set up to do this video, and I was like, Shaq's going to do it. I'm telling Adam, I'm telling everyone, like, it's going to happen. And then the day of the video, Shaq's like MIA. He's not responding to my two-way text. We had a two-way pager situation.
You're the king
then.
of the pagers, yeah.
And I was like, I was starting to freak out, because I was like, this is a bummer. Like, and I remember calling Adam, and Adam's like, it's okay. Even if he doesn't show up, I think we have enough here. And then I remember at like 7 or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, like when it was getting late, he called me, and he was like, you want me to do this video? And I was like, yes, please. And he goes, all right, be in my house in 10 minutes. I remember his house is like the top of Mulholland in I don't know if this is going to mean anything for anyone who's not from LA, but pretty far away from the Queen Mary where they were shooting
Long
it.
Beach,
And I think we had to be there in like 20 minutes or something. And I was like, man, we're never going to make it. And he goes, get in the car. And he puts a police siren on the top of his car. And he's driving. We're driving. This other guy named Chicago is in the car. We're driving to the Queen Mary. He's on the 405 going like 110 miles an hour and just telling people with a loudspeaker, move with the siren going. We get there in like 15 minutes. I don't even know how it happened. Like we couldn't have we would have beaten a helicopter. That's how fast it got. I was sitting there like going, I can't believe this is happening right now.
That's a good plan. Okay, guys, lock up the background here. Pictures up. Everybody clear?
That was one of the secrets.
Right foot
He
and
showed up
left
with
foot.
2 left shoes. Of course, his feet are like size 20, so nobody else could like lend him a shoe. And he said, and so we didn't really film the 2 left shoes.
Yeah, it was wild. I'm sitting there going, man, this is the greatest, but also like thinking that if he breaks his ankle, like I will have to move out of LA. Like people will find out that I was responsible. But we made that happen. And then we coordinated. The helicopter came into play when 311 played the K-Rock
Weenie Roast. Yeah.
We coordinated having Shaq fly in on a helicopter, come out on stage and perform Psycho, which was like just an all-time moment at that
The place
festival.
went nuts because they had just won the whole NBA championship. And then the other secret is when we hung out with him at the studio, he gives us one of his shoes and he wants to write, "You guys are psycho." And then he looks over to you, "Hey Ling, how do you spell psycho?" And then he wrote it. And we still have unfortunately the foam of the rubber of the shoe completely disintegrated. So, but we still have. He had his own shoe line, but that was such a special thing. And then, I mean, you hooked us up so good with that. And then, of course, the 51st Dates soundtrack.
Look,
There it is. I have one too.
I just told him that story right before that.
Nice.
Yeah,
So Nick, talk about the first time we met Ling, and then lead that up into that trip to Jamaica.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Ling had just finished high school, and there was this like kid who we met at like the Key Club. We would go to the Key Club, and he had his pager, but he always kept losing his pager. That was like an ongoing thing. I lost my pager, but you know, he knew all about our music, and he was just like the mayor of Hollywood. He knew everybody, club promoter, and we just started hanging out, and we were inseparable for years. And then during the Soundsystem break, like 98 was the only year that we ever took off. And I was like, Ling, essay, let's go to Jamaica. We're going to go down and stay at Native Wayne's place and just go and like infiltrate the sound systems and just like hear the real dance hall. And man, we had so much fun just going into the place where it was like only locals. There was no tourists there, and just hearing the thumping beats and hearing like, you know, the dance hall hits of the time, like Heads High. And you know, I made like a compilation of all that. We were listening to so much dance hall at that time, and you can really, yeah, Beanie Man, and Mr. Vegas, as I mentioned in the in Come Original, and we just made some memories and got so many little song ideas and just immersed in that culture. And then that led to the the Come Original video, which of course had that like massive sound system, behind us in the performance. But those are amazing times.
Brian,
I was telling him, Nick, you probably don't remember, but the first time that we met was I had booked Urge at the Key Club to play, and you came and sang, and that was the first night that we met. And then a week later was like 4th of July, and I saw you guys again at the Pressman's in Santa Monica, and that's when we really that's how you guys couldn't get rid of me after that.
That's right. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I was even finding, I have some like random things in this stuff, but this was the first ginseng photo shoot that we did with Brian Smith and myself as like the little models.
Oh my God. Love it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, man, there was, I gotta say, there's loads of stories. I was so fortunate to be embraced by my heroes, like I was saying earlier, and allowed to get a glimpse of the artist side of the record business at like such a young age, when I was kind of like working at a record label and working on kind of the other side of things, getting to hear and see like what a band was going through, and seeing what it was like to go out on tour, kind of having an experience that was like, what I thought it was like was so much different than what it was actually like. And then also, yeah, being able to go and hang with my heroes. It was like a almost famous kind of moment for me, where this was reinforced that like this is what I wanted to do, and that this kind of like energy out in the world, and seeing people city after city at shows. It's one thing to be a fan and be in it, and you're like watching your a band that you love perform. Another thing when you're young to kind of like get a perspective from the side of the stage and looking out like different cities and seeing people just like lose their minds, and seeing like a culture revolve around a band. I think that was like crucial for me to understand that culture around a band or around an artist is really like what it's all about. There's like a lot of things that kind of become really popular and really successful and then kind of fade away. And I think it's because there's not that kind of like foundation that's built through years and years of dedication. And for me in my journey, that's been, such an important thing to kind of keep in perspective. And I owe that to 311 for sure.
Well, and now you've been such a great sounding board for me over the past few years, of when I can call you and run stuff by you, of like, getting some perspective, and the fact that you've, managed so many bands and done so good with your business, and you just have this like artist integrity, sort of a true north that you're always like, I can really always count on getting good advice from you. So thank you as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, a lot of love. All right. So on that note, I'm going to share my screen here.
Wow.
It's an early days going out for sure.
Dude, how old do you guys think you were at this time?
I mean, I'm probably 20 at that point, maybe 20, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like 28, 29 then.
And Tara Sarah sent me that photo. So we were definitely out at some club or some party or something.
He used to get mistook for Justin Timberlake. People would be like, "Oh, Mr. Timberlake, right this way." No. True story. Am I wrong, Brian?
That did happen a few times, but then at 311 shows, I think especially after, like when people would start seeing me around or on the bus or whatever else, people definitely thought, there was a couple years where everyone thought I was Zach. And I would just be watching the show and people would be coming up, can I get a picture? I'd be like, you don't want a picture with me. They're like, no, you're Zach. Right? I was like, no, I'm not Zach. But yeah,
I'm his brother, but no.
All right, so this one's a classic. We talked about this in the Bryan Smith podcast.
Yeah,
and
our
this was
little camping trip.
this was the camping trip that was supposed to be a weekend and lasted like 5 hours, I think. And the best part about this and Bryan Smith was, what's really funny is that I had run into Bryan a couple weeks ago at the airport in London, or we were both flying to London, and he was telling me he had just done this. And he was like, we were just talking about you and camping trip. And he was like, remember you were going to swim across the lake. I was so trying to be like the tough guy. I was like, I'll swim across that lake right now. How much are you guys going to put on it? And then we found out later that like they pull bodies out of that lake for people trying to swim across it like all the time, because there's like weeds in it that grow up to the top.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was.
I remember you stood at the shoreline for, I swear to God, was like 30, 45 minutes, and you just stood at it like Rocky staring at like the finish line, and you were just like, I can do this. I can do this. I know I can do this.
The best was Bryan Smith. I think we all took mushrooms, right? And Bryan Smith was sitting on an actual anthill, but he was going, oh man, I feel like there's ants on me. And we just started laughing because we were like, no, it's just the mushrooms. And we looked down and there's just like, no, you're sitting on an anthill right now. There's just
He
like
starts
ants
freaking out. Get him off.
Ugh.
Yeah, we touched on that one.
I don't know why we came back that night. We probably ran out of. I don't know what we ran out of,
But then we went back to the Hive and played basketball and like got all scraped up from drunken shrooming basketball at the Hive.
Oh, look at that photo! That's a great photo.
Look at this one.
Wow. Yeah, that was an emo phase I was going through right there.
Nice.
Man. Oh yeah, that was a big moment in my DJ career.
DJ Bryan Ling.
That was, I don't know how that happened, but I remember being asked. I think like it was a last minute thing, like someone fell out, like the opener fell out, or you guys didn't need an opener, and Adam was like, do you want to just, because at that point I think I had transitioned from being a promoter to like every once in a while DJing. And so they were like, do you want to come and DJ? And I was like, sure. And it was so funny. I remember my perspective of like playing records or playing DJing at like a club, people dancing, way different than DJing before the show. People are just waiting for 311 to come on. It was pretty awkward.
I remember when downloading was a new thing, and you had just come back from Europe or something, and like either your laptop got stolen or somehow, and you like had a DJ show that night, and you were like, you had to download all your music for that show that night, and you're on like Hype Machine just downloading. So I was like, you can do that now? I mean, like we were there ushering in the whole new like streaming and downloading situation.
Totally.
All right.
It was so fun back then.
Here's a throwback right here. So This is Liquid Sprite Tour. We got a little interview here with Bryan. Let me make sure I got my audio settings coming through.
This is amazing.
Who's your favorite?
All of them. Nick, Chad, S.A. Tim, Peanut, they fucking rock. One of the best live bands of all time. Definitely. Hands down.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when we met Jay-Z, he was like, man, there's more people here to see than you see you guys than us sometimes.
That's all I got.
Wow. Yeah, those were formidable years for sure. I have this here's a Christmas card from Tim that I found.
What?
Yeah,
The drawings.
Yeah, the drawings. There's an old there's an Evolver core book. I just recently kind of went through a old box of memorabilia. This is actually, we went back to Jamaica and you guys played at Rick's Cafe.
Oh, right on the water, on those cliffs.
Right on the water.
We're in the grill, Jamaica. Band making me jump off the cliff.
Here it is.
What do you think? Are you next? Hell no.
Very
Oh my God. Look at this, Nick.
Oh, the Keys trips. Oh my God! I have a cigar in my mouth, probably.
Yeah, that was dry. That was, we were talking about it before this podcast. Here's Dryden from Alien Ant Farm.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah.
I remember we tried to play like King of the Mountain on the dock and like trying to push each other off the dock.
Yeah. Yep.
Epic.
Wow. The island days. It's wild. Like, what were those years? The island years?
03 through, I don't know, it was about 2011 when I finally unloaded it.
Right. Wow, you had it that long. Incredible. I went there, I think, 3 times. Kurt Grubb was on one of the trips.
Oh, Grubby.
How's he doing?
He's good. He was part of the roast when 311 got inducted into the Omaha Press Club. Him and B-Love was one of the presenters too.
Oh man, that must have been epic.
So talk a little bit about those island trips. I mean, I got to go on one too, and really just a epic. It's like, it's definitely in my top 3 vacations I've ever taken out of all the places I've been. Something about when you step on the island, you're in a different universe. It seems you're in a different world. You make up your own rules.
Yeah, and just like living off the water, there's like lobster right there you can catch with a stick and a net, and catching snapper and just eating it and just
Fry the
like
fish.
fish. Yeah, snapper Nick Nuggets was my special recipe of
Nick Nuggets.
of breaded snapper, and just the partying and the music and the bonfires and the sunsets. It's just like was so relaxing.
I
Man,
think it might have been a game where you catch a fish on the dock, right? And you see how long it would take until you were eating it, and it was like maybe like 2 minutes was the
Yeah.
record or something like that. So Nick is pulling out the electric slicer, like like making fillets, march it straight up, throw it in a pan, and then we're like, that was 2.5 minutes. That was the new record.
Super
Yeah,
fresh.
it was so awesome being there. It was so relaxing. You just chilled out, cruised around in the boat. There's a pool on the island for some reason. Still haven't figured that. Still didn't understand that. We were swimming. I remember being in the pool going, I'm swimming in the pool in the ocean.
And then going into Key West.
Yeah, going into Key West, which was definitely an experience for sure. But it was so cool, and it was so awesome that you had something really that you love to share with your friends. That was like the thing, that people closest to you got to come hang out on that island, and I felt like a cool, like, it just again, another thing, my memory of just being like, wow, one of those moments where I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. This is awesome. And yeah, what never got too hot. I was never there when it was too hot. Yeah, it was like perfect. The mangroves, right? That's what kept the island in place. I got to learn a little bit about the ecosystem of Florida.
Yeah, there's just live wildlife everywhere. It was just you could be out there sitting on the dock, and all of a sudden you'd hear all this splashing around, and like the dolphins would hunt in a pack, where one, like, they like had this coordinated thing where there's like a school of mullet, and one dolphin would like shake their tail in the water to like make a cloud, and then other dolphins would come in, and so that the ocean was just like boiling with activity. It was
Wow.
so cool.
You remember the ritual that you had to take when you stepped on the island? It was basically, it was a yelling ritual where you're not allowed to take any of your outside problems with you. So when you stepped on the island, you have to yell, "Private island!" as
That's right.
loud
Private
as you
island.
and all your stress was just getting released out, and then it was just constant relaxation after that.
I forgot about that.
That's right. I do remember that.
Well, that's awesome.
There's something invigorating about doing that. I suggest everybody that every once in a while just walk outside and yell "Private Island" as loud as you can.
There you go. No matter what.
All right, dude. What a great podcast. You guys have any other questions?
What
Ross,
a great.
J2?
I was just going to tell him. I mean, he's had a lot of cool stories and sentiment tonight on the band, and a very cool 311 origin story of your own. You know, it sounds familiar. A lot of the guys that we interviewed that, you know, ended up being friends and working along the band, they have that same, you know, you can't score if you don't shoot attitude. You know, take a chance. You don't know what you don't know kind of thing. So, similar story here. And do you have anything that you'd like to say to Nick while we have him here, or the band, or the 311 community on large, about just, you know, your final thoughts or, you know, involvement over the years?
I'll just say, I'll just say that, like, it can't really take for granted what, you know, what's the right way to kind of phrase this? All of a sudden my like music business brain almost like crept in, but just like the culture around a band and the community around band, it's just not, it's not every day. It's not something that like happens unless you dedicate yourself to something that's kind of bigger than any one member or any one person or whatever else. And you know, I've been fortunate enough to get a glimpse to the, you know, like I was saying before, like a little peek behind the curtain. And as with any family, you know, it's, you have to work hard on your own personal relationships, inner band relationships, and also keeping in focus what this whole journey kind of means to you and to everyone else who's out there. It's 311's touched so many lives, and it's apparent with just kind of, you know, every show and every dedication. Like seeing the tiny desk the other day, it was so cool. So many of my friends and people that I work with, people I manage, hitting me up saying, "Did you see 311 on Tiny Desk?" Like, you can't take for granted like what the journey has been for this band in all of the years, and each of them to kind of keep it going has been a testament to kind of like how much their fans mean to them. And I think that that's like such a special thing. And again, I've just been so fortunate to have them as my friends and my mentors and people who kind of embrace this kid who was just like so pumped to be hanging out, and didn't ever make me feel like I was kind of less than. And I think that that's, that spirit has really helped me in my own path, and forever grateful. Those guys can call me up anytime. I'll do anything for any of them.
That's awesome.
Right
That's
on,
awesome.
man.
Well-
Very blessed. I'm so glad our paths have crossed.
Well, that's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Well, we
Cool.
want to thank you guys for taking the time to join us today. Appreciate you popping in there,
Yeah.
Nick.
Got it.
Thank you,
Take care,
Nick.
y'all.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys.
All right, y'all.
Thank you, Brian.
Another episode of 311 Odyssey in the books. Have a great one.